Hello today. So right off the bat, you're gonna see I've got my Wacom Desktop Center pulled up, because we're gonna start off with kind of fine-tuning our tablet hotkeys and our keyboard shortcuts before we start going into some more fun stuff. The resource links are on my website for the image we'll be working with. It's one of the pencil drawings I had done of Deus quite a while ago. And we'll do some vector line art on him today, or vector and raster, I guess. And hello, Tiger. So your screen might look a little bit different, but it's kind of always good to just kind of go through and find out where your pen settings lead you, your express key settings. On Macintosh, it generally will always pop you open into your system preferences. Um, so we're going to set our Photoshop so that way I can have a quick key for my eyedropper tool. So I'm just going to open an image so that way it's a little bit easier. And under preferences in your program, you should have, where did it go? Watch as it's gonna, keyboard shortcuts. Oh, okay, so they put it used to be under preferences and they've moved it to under edit. Um, oh, and they've got another one under workspace, okay. Well, I'm just gonna go with this one. So this is going to kind of let me see what all my keyboard shortcuts are. Um, and I can edit them as needed. So you'll see that I've got a bunch that are under the key U, so that's if I hit the Shift U, it'll cycle through all of these. Sometimes it won't let you do that with some things. I have my decrease brush hardness, increase brush hardness, previous brush, next brush. I tend to set everything into my Photoshop uh, shortcuts, just so that way I don't have to jump around whenever I'm in a different program. I can streamline my workflow. Uh, but right now I'm going to go to. Sorry, I'm kind of fighting off a cold still. I want my eyedropper tool. So where is it? Eyedropper tool. Oh, okay, and I can do all the fun stuff. Panel menus, task spaces, tools. And you'll see it'll let me set it to Photoshop defaults or my streaming workspace. Use legacy undo. It used to be if you just hit Command or Control Z, however many times you could keep going back. I believe it's slightly different now. I can't quite remember what the difference was. It's been a very, very long time since I've used CS5. You can see we have a couple different options. Apply to all commands. Save all changes for the current set of shortcuts. Oh, wait, which one is it? I can't quite remember. Color sampler? Might be color sampler. So you can go through, you can change whatever you want to. Right now, what I'm looking for is when I hit Alt, that brings up my eyedropper tool. I'm going to set up my uh, tablet instead to do that Alt command. So under my tablet shortcuts, we're going to put it on the main one. Modifier. And there we go, keystroke. So this should, I think it's option. Come on. Oh, so it'll let me do backspace, but it won't let me do option. Is it under special? As you can see, it's been a while since I've done this as well, so you can actually set it to capture screen and oh, she's giving me problems today. Oh, okay, so I already have it set apparently. So it's modifier option. And we can set it to click at the same time. So now it should, there we go. So now every time I hit my keyboard, it turns on my little color selector, and then when I release it, that's the color it selects. My other tablet was under keystroke. So sometimes you gotta find where it's hiding in your tablet, and it might be different for each tablet. The struggle is very real. I definitely agree with you there. Um, you can also sometimes app shortcut. Um, it doesn't quite seem to work with this tablet. My Intuos 4, it specifically let me select eyedropper for Photoshop. And you'll see it'll list it down here, option left click. Let's do one more. Let's do this as, well, what's my hand tool, if I recall? There should be a quick select for my hand tool. Oh, no. So I could set it to my move tool. It's going to keep saying because my layer, you can see my little lock right here, means my layer's locked, it's not going to go anywhere. But if I were to make a new layer, put something on it, and then move it. Ooh, wrong one. Okay, so it's Command on Mac. And then when you release it, let's go. So I could throw that on my tablet too. So modify, and I want Command and left click. So now when I press it, it just automatically grabs a hold, and I can move it wherever. And you'll see up here my little screen shows up. Um, so it's always good to kind of put your keys in a way that makes sense. If you have to reach across your other hands, that's going to start becoming a little bit more difficult. So that might be something that you want to use as your less used options. So you can see I have undo and new layer. which I didn't set that. That was automatically set that way. And I totally didn't know that. Huh? You learn something new every day. But let's look at how to do that. Keyboard keystroke. So it says Command Z. I hit clear, and it was already named as undo. So my undo is Command Z. Oh, look, it puts it in there. It wouldn't just do the one. Huh. Alrighty then. And new layer is probably. Oh no, it would be Command Shift N. I will bet you money. Ah, Command Shift N. So there's your new layer. As you can tell, I haven't played around with my tablet near as much as I probably should have. And then again, I have it set to pan scroll. Uh, so that's my upper click. So if I'm zoomed in really close. Ooh. It's a very awkward key on my tablet pen to use, so I don't use it all that often because, so you can see, I sometimes don't press it right. Okay, we're going to delete that layer. I don't think I'm going to use undo though. Uh, since for some reason my Photoshop has this thing, I'm going to say new canvas. My my Photoshop has this thing where if I Alt Tab out of it, and then instead of Alt Tabbing, I just click back into it, I can't draw anything until I create a new document and remind it that it's open. So let's do a new canvas. So now when I click new canvas, lets me open my new canvas. And then again, I don't typically use on-screen controls on this tablet. I did on my other tablet. So I'm just going to leave that blank for now. And then your double click distance, play around with them, find what works best for you. I'd say when you change it, give it 15 minutes while you're working. See if it's working. If it's not, then go start changing it again. And you will find one that's most comfortable for you for settings. Now I'm going to close you down to make sure you're down there. Okay, so yeah, the file that we had on that's on my website, so you can see I didn't crop it, didn't do anything. We're going to have fun with our little some of the things we had done last time. So we're going to Shift C until we get to our perspective tool, and we're going to hunt down the corners of the page. And I'm not sure if this is something that is available in. I know we've got GIMP users and Procreate. I'm not sure if this is available in either of them. I hope it is. We're going to find the edges of our image, hit enter, and bless it, it tried its best. Still not quite perfect, so delete this layer. Going to double click, and I didn't want that. Double click on the layer in order to make it a layer 0 instead of a background. You'll see it removed the lock. So now I can hit my Command T, and if I hold Shift, I can kind of adjust it until it's a little bit more straight. So I can do it that way. Let's see if I have enough undos. Or if I have my perspective, I'm trying to remember what size of paper I use. I believe it's a 9 by 12. Oh, that's not right. I want 9 inches by 12 inches. Not pixels. That will be very small. So now when I click on my corners, it says 9 inches by 12 inches, and I want it at 200 pixels per inch. Now when I hit enter, hit enter twice. Oh, that made it much smaller than I was anticipating. So now you can see that it laid it out much, much better. So if you draw something on an 8.5 by 11 inch printer paper, you can type that into your 8.5 by 11. You don't need to line up your picture just perfect to get your artwork into your program. We could have also done that using the marquee tool. Actually, I'm going to redo that perspective crop. Oh no, I can't get over there. Hmm. My trackpad on my Mac died and I can't get over to So as you can see, sometimes programs are so big that there's no way that you know everything. You won't let me do a snapshot from here. Okay, guess so. Never mind then. We're gonna do this with the marquee tool. Or sorry, I should say the polygon lasso tool. So I'm gonna click on my corners. And you see it kind of lays it out not too bad. I have to apparently redo my make it a layer. And if you Command T for transform and you go under perspective, it will let you start lining it up by hand, and you can line it up to the edge of the canvas. So you can see that's not the most perfect scale. Oops, let's hold shift so we're only going on the one axis. It's not the most perfect way to do it, but it is a workaround for people who don't have a program that happens to have that perspective grid, and you can even set new guides to your page size and then match the edges of your selection to that. But for me, just gonna go back to my. As you can see, it saved all my settings. Whoops! Come back here. Ran away on me. Now you'll notice that my background is not a perfect white. You can see it on my color panel here, and my lines aren't a perfect black. It's okay, we're not going to use this directly as line art. This is kind of just an offer up to show you kind of how using paths to make line art work. It's not a method I necessarily recommend as any kind of efficient, but especially for people who are using a mouse still, or who just can't get a tablet, it's a very nice little way of getting your line art smooth and not having to worry about trying to mouse lines and getting jitters everywhere. So I'm going to delete you. Uh, so under image adjustments and levels is where we're going to go to get our background to a more white, so we can use, like we did the other day, a multiply layer if we ever need to. So you'll see if you take that middle slider and you move it more to this side, everything goes more white. Go to this side, everything gets much more darker. So I'm going to want to move my grays. This is where your grays are going to land. So the grays are going to be more my lines in this case. I'm going to put them a little bit more to the dark side of the scale. Now this one is where your blacks are going to land, so if you move them over, your blacks are just going to get darker and darker and darker. And this one's your whites. So if you take your whites and you start moving it over, you'll see it gets more and more white. Move my grays, whites. And you can adjust your output levels. So I want it a little bit lighter. I don't want as many blacks, is what this is telling it. I don't want to blow out the blacks, but I do want a lot of whites. And then I'm going to desaturate. So this is going to remove all the color information and just put it in black and white or grayscale. You'll see I'm getting a lot closer to that. I'm at 99% white. So that will work for kind of a base layer. And now we're going to do a little bit of masking. So layer masking, oh, that's not what I wanted. Going to create a new layer, and I'm going to put it behind the other layer. And I'm going to make this perfectly white. Otherwise, you're going to see transparent pixels show up. Which, yeah, let's show you what the transparent pixels look up. So a layer mask essentially means, hey, I don't want to see this part of the layer. I want it to be, I want it to be transparent to the layers underneath it. And you can do that by your little square with the dot in the middle, and that creates your layer mask. So you'll see it's white, and your color slider will go to a white and black. So black means transparent, white means opaque. And you can have any amount you want in between. I'm just going to select I want my normal lasso tool. There we go. Just going to take my lasso tool, going to select all this part, and then you'll see when I paint spill it black, that part disappears. So now when I have my white underneath it, it's starting to get a little bit more to my white because I'm hiding that a little bit. You can also select if you want, select your soft round brush, because you can see I've got a kind of hard line. Don't necessarily want the hard line. You can start fading that out if you want. You can also say, hey, I want my image to end right here. And you can hide everything below that. I'm not going to get too into it, but one of the advantages of masking is, so I've masked out those. Instead of erasing, I can always say disable layer mask, and I still have that full layer available. I haven't actually changed the image any with the layer mask. All I've done is hidden parts of it. So I can also say, hey, let me go to a 50% gray. So this is going to be 50% transparent. Give me my brush back. So you'll see it starts to create a little bit more of a gradation. Now if I go over top of the parts that I had black, it's going to start reappearing a little bit because it's at 50% transparent. I can go up to 70% transparent. And then if you want to, if that's the changes you want, you're okay with that, you can apply layer mask and that will erase all those parts. You can select and mask again. I don't really stack masking. I've tried and it doesn't seem to do what you want. You can see your options. So your layer mask display, I believe that's hotkey Q, if I'm not mistaken, will show you with a red overlay. Oh, maybe that's not Q. Give me my mask. Mask options. Where do you hide that again? Channels? I'm trying to remember. There's where I put my channels. So you'll see under my channels, I have my layer mask, and I can turn that on. There we go. That is very hard for me to see, so I'm actually going to change that to a blue. Blue's a little bit easier for me to see. So you can see exactly where my layer mask is. And you can work on it that way too. You can go up to your color 100%. And then if you don't want to see that anymore, you can just click on your RGB and turn off your visibility on your layer mask, because you were just working on your layer mask, you were channel. If you don't deselect it, sometimes you get some oddities. And I'm actually just going to open my paths here because we're going to be working with that in a second. Uh, and we're going to come back a little bit more into layer masks in a bit. But for now, we're going to create a new layer, or you can use your hotkey on your tablet for that. Going to name this one lines. So we're going to go into some of the tools that we didn't hit the last time. Our pen tool, it's just hotkey P. Excuse you while you go witchcraft every new thing you try. Yeah, it's once you get the hang of them and you can jump between them. For anyone who's watched me on live stream, that's that's how it goes. Is you're like, oh look, I can suddenly do all this witchcraft. Ho ho ho. What time do we got? 19:29. Perfect. So, and actually, you know what? I'm going to. Ooh, that was not where I wanted to put that. Since we're going to be working with this, I'm just going to put it right here so we can kind of watch and see what's going on. I don't think it needs to be that big. We'll put it there. Okay, so a path is a vector tool. Um, And you'll notice if we hit Shift P, we've got a couple options. This is the freehand pen tool. What do they call this one? Curvature pen tool. See, I know what they're called, or I know what they do, but I don't necessarily know what they're called all the time. I generally just go on a normal path. And when you click, you'll see, hey, that gives me a little dot, and it starts something called a work path. And you can click on all of your corners, say we'll make a square. And when you see that little, go back one, you see that little circle at the end of the pen, that means you're closing your path. If you hold Command, that usually brings up your hotkey for your path movement. Photoshop, yes, Photoshop is basically witchcraft. And you'll see it gives a little bit of it shows you your work path in here. When I hold Command or Control in Windows, this little white selection tool, you'll see it grabs everything. That you can also get there if you hit A, which just gives you that white one, or Shift A is the black one. The white one is for selecting single points. So what I did there was, because they were all selected, I just clicked, drag, and got my one endpoint. So that lets you grab endpoints on your path, or anchor points, if I recall. I think they're still called anchor points. And you can move them wherever you want. And we're going to do a little bit of witchcraft here in a second. You can also select a part of a line, so it doesn't show that it's selected, but if I hit delete, it'll delete that one line. Paths are the only thing you actually know about. And now we're actually going to take our path, and we're going to find the endpoints. We'll use the face, since that's what everyone... Oops! No, I just want my little anchor point. We're going to find where all the lines make a sharp change of direction. And I'm actually going to hit P to bring up my pen tool, and I'm going to do the rest of the face. Okay, and I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to go, oh, hey, no, I want one more path. But you'll see if you click and add one more point, you're going to get these little quarter points. These are your curvature pen. Every point you click is automatically going to add a curvature in there. And then when I click my A, or hold my Command, I can select my one. And I can move it wherever I want, and then this will adjust my curve. I could say I need one more, one more here. Going to put one here. So this isn't the most efficient way to do line art, but it does work really well for people who don't have tablets. And actually, I'm going to delete these ones. And I'm going to, Shift A. There we go. I'm going to put this up here. E to select my pen tool. Come back here. And if you really want to get into it, you can zoom right in. And you can start getting really, really exact with your path. This works really good if you're going to be doing a character that's uh, going to be on a business card or on a billboard or oh yeah for IMV use and Second Life stuff that would work really good too. And you see how this one's kind of making a weird S. I'm just going to drag my little curve points in. It's also been a very long time since I've done paths this way. And I'm going to delete this line. Um, a lot of artists actually start out this way. This is a very convoluted and, as I said, not the most efficient way to do lines. But yeah, if you got a character that you're going to be putting on a bunch of different things and you need it to be a vector character, this is a way to go about it. There are ways in Adobe Illustrator, for example, that you can right click your image, tell it to trace, and it'll automatically trace it uh, as a vector. Oh, and I see I've got I don't quite like that line, so I'm going to bring that in. I don't quite like that line either, so I'm going to bring that in. Sometimes it takes a little bit of working. But so I've got my basics of my lines. Now if I click on my work path, everything's it assumes that everything on that layer, work path layer, is selected. So now if I'd want to, with under my new layer lines, I can hit the fill path with foreground color. That's not what I want. I want to stroke path with the brush that I've got on. Oops, and I should put it on black. And let's make this something more reasonable, like 6 pixel brush. So you'll see it's given me my more solid lines. So that is a way to do the line art on some of your characters if you'd like. If you get a design going that you like and say you want to take it into something a new screen, give me my normal. You can actually click and drag your work path if you want. Nope, that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted my black. There we go. Put it wherever you want. Um, this works good for if you are doing a bunch of character designs and you want to have a palette. So you can make a bunch of circles. You can make them overlap. And I actually should have made a new path layer for this, but I didn't. So there's that. So every time you do a new character design, you can move it over. And there's your paths to make. They're always at the same size. Also works really well for, and this is more what I use it for. I'm actually just going to select this path and delete it. Give me my pen tool. Sure, let's use pen tool. So if you want to do a decorative design on your edges, we'll do like a knot, Celtic knot of some kind. Going to move that one out, move that one out a little bit. Oops. Yeah, see they've changed it since the last Photoshop that I used, where it didn't delete stuff like that. I don't know if it's because I don't have it on my free. Oh, I've got some line going the wrong direction, apparently. There we go. So you can start creating your own little edging. We'll do something kind of florally. Uh, Now, if you click, for some reason it doesn't have a hotkey assigned to it, but you can select your convert point tool, and that'll automatically make it a pointed, or if you click and drag, that'll give you your curvature. And then there's add anchor point, delete anchor point. I normally just go with the pen tool. So you can start creating your own little edging if you'd like. It's not my nicest. Normally I kind of draw it out by hand to figure it out. But then if you need to copy that over to another document, you could just click and drag it and it's the exact same. If you need to resize it because it's not a raster, it could be resized to any layer and then redrawn without any of that blurriness that you sometimes get when you blow up an image. Going to create a new layer. And then you can make selection. So what your little dancing ants turns it into a selection. Your fill with color, your stroke path with whatever brush you happen to have selected. You can also use this for speech bubbles, if you so choose. So if you want, you can, let's actually do a couple speech bubble things, because we're going to put a speech bubble on here. So if I want to save my work path, I can double click it and I can name it edging. And then I can create a new one. So now we're not going to, let me ditch that for a second. So now if I clicked on my edging, it would come back. If I click off of it, it goes away. We're going to name this one Speech Bubble. I spelt that wrong. We're going to create, we'll create it after. So you'll see we have, it's an ellipse tool under U, and Shift U brings you to your rectangle or your polygon or your lines, or your shape tool, which you can make any shape you want. Is this the freeform one? I can't remember. Your rounded edges, and you've got a couple of different options for all that. Under your polygon tool, this is actually one of the cheat ways that I use to make a perspective tool in Photoshop, because Photoshop doesn't have the nice perspective tool that Clip Studio Paint does. So I can make it have 100 sides. And I want to star it. So when you click on star, you'll see you have a bunch of points that all go to the middle. And if you hold shift while you're dragging out, it will automatically place it on a 90-degree angle. And actually, it's 360 degrees. Let's put 360. Oh, it won't do it. Cool. 180. Nope. Between 100. Derp. That doesn't line it up very nice. But you can select all of your... I'm just showing you the quick cheat for perspective tool really quick. And then I'll go back to making that speech bubble. Retransform points. And I should be able to, if I go to up here to 0, I want to shrink it down to 0% on both the height and the width. And you now have a perspective grid that you can hide. So that's kind of a cheat way to do perspective grids in Photoshop. Then you can select where your horizon line is. If you hold shift down, it will give you a straight line all the way across. So now when you go to draw your buildings or whatever, and to stop making a path with the path tool selected, if you hold command and click off to the edge, or control in Windows, that stops your shape. But so now if I was making a building, I'd know, here's my... I'd probably do them different heights. There's the start of your grid, and you can put another one over here to figure out where your second point perspective is. I'm just going to freehand it. Throw in some light posts. Then when you click off of it, hides your perspective grid. Okay, and I was doing speech bubbles. This is what happens when I don't plan myself very well. It's been a fun week. We'll just say that. So we're going to go speech bubble. And we're going to hit Shift and U until we get to our circle. So generally in comics, you wouldn't use a perfect circle. So we can free transform path. And if you hold your command down, you can also warp it, which is generally what I do. I kind of get my edges flat and pull my corners out. I had already touched that corner, so it's not going to do it near as well. Yes. But now I need, where's this speech coming from? Should have selected my, I'm going to put 1 point there, 1 point there. I'm going to delete this middle one. Convert these two to endpoints so they don't give me any hassle. Now I've got my speech bubble. If you want, you can right click and duplicate your path, and we're going to make a shouting bubble. Doesn't really fit in with this one, but we're going to do one. Bubble. And if you select, you can hold shift and select both of these, so that way you can see them if you want. So I'm going to go back to that shift U until I get to my star, the one that I could do a star with. There we go, polygon. Just gonna do 6. We'll do more than 6. Let's do 15. And you can select your internal radius if you want. Now, because I'm gonna randomize these, I'm just selecting my A tool. What is that called? Direct selection tool. Okay. Um, your direct selection tool then. And we're gonna bring some around the edges. And you want it to be kind of random. Some of them should be longer than others. Clip Studio Paint, I will say, definitely has the advantage on this one because they already vectorize all of their speech bubbles, so it just kind of automatically. Oops, that was not the one I wanted to delete. I want to delete. Okay, and apparently it started building this on the wrong layer. Stop doing that. Going to take. I'm having a day apparently. Don't forget, buy your Photoshop some candies. We are a superstitious focus artists. Okay, I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to Command X to cut, and I'm going to put this on my shouting bubble layer, and Command V to paste. You can cut and paste paths. And I'm actually going to paste another one. And we're going to free transform path. I'm going to spin her around. Cut out some of my work so I don't have to. Actually, let's flip it vertical. Flip horizontal. Cut some work out for myself. I'm just going to delete these points and attach them to the other one. So now you have a shouting speech bubble that you can use, a regular speech bubble. Nobody knows what kind of candies Photoshop likes. I know in 3D, we used to buy Maya chocolates in our 3D design course. And yeah, Clip Studio speech bubbles are quite beautiful. But then now when you take these into any of your panels, and you can just have a document with nothing but speech bubbles saved in them that you can drag and drop over to your other stuff. Um, I'm actually using a very terrible brush for this. I should be using like a hard round or something. Sure, hard round. Let's put you at, I normally do between 6 and 10 for speech bubbles. 6 preferably, 6 pixels. So now when I make a stroke, too thick, I'm going to go down to 6. So now when I make a stroke, it puts my speech bubble on my line art layer. I can move it around. Say, hey, that's not the right size. I can go back to my path, select it, shrink it. Uh, Now, one thing I will warn you about, though, if you have any of your paths visible, when you try to transform anything or you try to delete, like select everything and delete it, you'll delete your path or you'll transform your path. You have to click into this blank space there to deselect your all your paths and then re-click it again. Wow, that's not okay because I didn't have my brush tool selected. And if you don't have your brush tool selected when you go to stroke the line, it does some weird, funky stuff. But now you'll see every time we resize this speech bubble, the line stroke doesn't blow up when we make a new one. And then if I want to, I can select it, make a new layer underneath it, and fill it with, we'll say gray, so you can kind of see. So then there's the background for your speech bubble. You can make it slower opacity. If you want to hide some of the background, but not all of the background, you can remove the line if you want, and then you just have your speech bubble color. But so we've got our speech bubble. Yes, yes, Photoshop. When you do something Photoshop doesn't like, it very violently tells you that I didn't like that. Um, this isn't necessarily a comicking course, but your speech bubbles should always point towards the character's mouth. We'll throw a little bit of an angle on those, on that tail. Uh, Now, text is also a vector. I'm going to get rid of my tools and open. Actually, might take a little bit of a break between this and that. Okay, well, I'll get this opened up. So T is your text tool. Text is also a vector tool because you can make it any size and it's not going to blur at the edges. It's not rasterized. So if you oh, huh, you learn something new every day. So apparently if you go within a path with your text tool and you click on it, it will follow your path. That's new. I didn't know it did that. If you see that circle, that dotted circle around the text tool, it fills that in as your speech bubble. That is cool. I did not know that did that, and my comics are going to become so much easier here in the next little bit. Yeah, wow. You learn something new every day. Does it resize? Oh, it does resize. Huh. Well, now we know. This is entertaining. Happy little speech bubbles. Um, and then the freehand, I see the freehand line when I'm on the line, and then your text follows that. Actually, give me that angry speech bubble. I'm going to do something. Follow all the anger. Okay, yeah, I could see uses for that. Cool. Learn something new. uh, so I can't even see what I'm writing here. Okay, so I just kind of freehand typed that out. I'm going to take a quick 10-minute break. Everyone go have a walk around, go have a water, stretch your wrists, whatever it takes. That's going to entertain me for ages now. Lines type path. Huh. Nope, don't rasterize that layer. Yeah, okay. I'm give me my brush tool. Let me write it. Did I put this on multiply? No. Let's put this on multiply so I can write on the layer underneath it. Take a 10-minute break, walk around. Let me absorb the fact that there's something new I learned about Photoshop today. And I will be back in about 10 minutes. And I am back. Oh no. Yeah, paranoid pop rocks if you when you do your drawing and then you zoom out and you're like, "Oh no. I missed a spot." That's I know because I believe you're on Procreate if I remember correctly. It doesn't have the navigator and I can't survive without my navigator because I do that all the time. Okay, and then I see when I select off, my line's path disappears, but under my text, it's there still. Um, so I'm going to, actually, yeah, I'm going to put you right here for now. Um, so you'll see I'm using a font called Anime Ace 2.0 BB, which is a free to use font. I'm trying to remember the creator off the top of my head, but it's not coming to me. I will probably post it on my website. So if anybody would like to go admire his stuff and donate to him for fonts, always donate to your artists. um, he also makes fonts that you can buy as well. But I've got a couple different variations. He also does the Acme Secret Agent, and there's starts with a K. Keelhauled, I think is what it's called. So you'll see you have a point selection for your fonts. So 11 points. You can put it to 15. Anybody who does any kind of writing, points make a lot of sense because it's the exact same. Oh, Tiger, you're yay! You're filled in, fill the entire canvas. Yeah, no, that's selection or we're using a path. Paranoid hands aren't important. I mean, in case you didn't notice, I left out hand in my sketching. Both. Oh, you used both, Tiger? Yeah, that's when it works, it works. So I've got my handwriting in the background, but I'm going to kind of try to match this. 15's a little bit too much. No, I don't want to rasterize. So if you have a raster tool selected, such as your brush tool or your eraser, and you click on a vector, it will give you a warning that you are rasterizing this layer. So once you rasterize it, actually let's do that and show you what happens. So now if I were to need to click off. Now if I were to resize that, you see how it gets blocky? It's because it's not going to do too bad because I've got such a high. Should probably erase my be right back. But you're going to start getting blurring. That was not what I wanted it to do. It's giving me a little bit of hassle because I don't have this as a background layer. I just have it as a. There we go. You get a little bit of a blurring once you get to a rasterized layer. And actually, that's not going to work because now I've gone and rasterize that. There we go. Whereas if I don't rasterize it and I resize it, I can blow it up as large as I want. It's never going to start blurring because it's a vector. So it's using math to figure out where its edges are, as opposed to this pixel is this color, this pixel is this color, this pixel is this color, and then when you blow it up, it has to guess pixels along the edge. You can also set your vertical spacing. So say I usually go 1 point above. So if I'm at 14, I'm going to go 15, and that's usually your comic spacing is 1 point above your line or your height. This is your letter spacing, so how close your letters are together. Sorry, this one's your letter spacing. This one has more to do with the angles. Um, it would be a little bit of a better question for a graphic designer. They probably know a little bit more on that. What percentage of your line your height is going to fill? So 100% of the line. So it's imagining that there's like when you have lined paper or ruled paper and you're writing on it, it's imagining there's those blue lines there, wants to fill 100%, but I could tell it, hey, I only want you to do 50%. And you see how it squishes. And I could set the same thing here, go 50%. This is your subscript. So if I go, let's go 10. Kerning, that's what it's called. I don't have subscript turned on, I don't think. There we go. So if I turn my subscript on, it's going to say subscript point is 10 points as opposed to 14. Or is that it moves it up on the line? That's that it moves it up on the line. That's what that is. Now you can select your color. This is your weight, so italic, bold. Some fonts have it, some fonts don't. If you have a handwriting font, how it connects your handwriting together, how it goes into the next one, how it shorthands numbers. But it, again, all depends on the font type that you have. So you can see I've got some fancy downloads. Wonder if I have a handwriting font. I don't believe I have a handwriting font on hand. Da, 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 da. Zapfino. There we go. So you can see my spacing doesn't work with Zapfino. You can set it to whatever you'd like. Going to go back to my 15 points. Under your paragraph, you can set how much of an indent it has, how much of your first line indent. Which one's this one? Add space before paragraph. How much of an indent on the right hand side you have, how much of a space below the bottom. Hyphenate is if it cuts off a word, it's just going to hyphenate stuff. Then you can have your centered, right align, left align. Your glyphs show you all your special effects. Let me drag that bigger. So that's what all your font letters look like. If you can't find one or you don't know the shorthand key for E with an accent, you can come in here and type it or click on it yourself. Um, and this is kind of what the vector is going to assume your curved edges are: sharp, crisp, strong, smooth. I'm not entirely sure what these two are. Mac LCD, that doesn't look very good. I'm sure my Mac does some weird mathematical equations that make no sense to anybody because Apple. I lie because I love my Mac. Um, so I'm gonna take my text. I'm going to kind of move it into the middle. My speech bubble. Gonna shrink it a little bit. Oop. Undo. There we go. If it's if it's selected and you hit enter, it will delete everything. You want to hit command or control enter. Yes, that's when I make jokes like that, I have no question in my mind why my Mac decides it's going to fight me. So I'm going to make my text, going to make my speech bubble. If I can spell, bubble has two B's in it. I'm going to select that. I've got my 6-point hard brush. And I need to hide this so I can... Oh, it helps if I have it on a color that's visible. So let's go black. Line you with black. That still doesn't look right. Why does that not look right? No, my opacity's at 100%. Opacity there's at 100%. It's just being not very friendly today, I guess, because that sometimes happens. And then I'm also going to make a selection, or you can let's go fill if you want. Make a selection. I'm going to make it not quite white because that's kind of what I prefer. G for my fill tool. Going to fill my speech bubble. And then I'm going to go back to my base layer and my mask. I'm going to set this back at 100% transparency. Going to select the text that I can't really see. And I'm going to fill that with that mask. And you can see where it's all the way around the edges. I can do all that too. And if you saw that stepping, that was because I had that blur. I was using the soft. So it was running into the edges of that soft brush effect. And then we had kind of got touched on it last time. If you don't like that line, you can always go to your fill layer, and you can go under blending options, and you could just add a line to it that automatically. We'll go 5 pixels. Let's make this black. Um, this will also kind of vectorize, as it's not quite a vector, but it applies it after you transform an object. So you can resize this if needed, and it should remake your stroke effect at the same size. So it just depends entirely on what you prefer. If you think that's a little bit too strong, we can go 4. And if you find you get oddities, you can actually, before I make a mask, you can select your area, and if you hit mask while you have a selection, you'll see it only cuts out that selection. I made the wrong one. If you need to invert all of the colors on everything that you have selected, that's Command Shift I, or Control on Windows, Control Shift I. Oh, maybe not. What is it? Oh, okay, it's just Command I. So Control I on Windows, and then that hides my little weird hiccup that had happened there. Now, besides your masks, you'll see this little lock effect. That means that this mask is locked to this layer. So if I move it, the mask is going to move with the layer. If I unlock it and make sure I have my layer selected, not the mask selected, and move the layer, you'll see that my mask does not move with it as well. I'm going to keep that locked to that layer. And I'm going to name him Sketch. We've got Sketch on multiply. And I'm going to say that's how I want this mask to look. So I'm going to apply my layer mask. And you'll see how some of the pixels around the edges of the preview went transparent. And I'm going to hit Command J or Control J on Windows. I'm not sure if this crosses over to other programs, but that's duplicate layer. So I can stack my multiply, kind of start getting my blacks back. Right click and merge down. Actually, it's good where it was at. And you can mess with your adjustments again if you want. Now we're going to do a little bit more with masks. So instead of last time where we were just kind of selecting an area, I'm just going to fill an area. So you can also do this using layer masks. So I'm going to name you Skin, and the only thing I want is this. This. Now if I hit my little mask button, masks out everything but that. So you can also do it that way. That works not terrible. Your file size is going to get a little bit large going this route, but hey, if it works for you, it works for you. It works really well for if you're just laying out a mass amount of colors really fast. Mask that. Name that hair. we're going to kind of go down to the fade. Random color selection is random. Oops, I was going to do that on a full layer. So I can mask it first, and then I can go back, fill the layer. And then, because I kind of want to match that fade, I can go with my smooth brush, make sure I'm on my mask layer. One of the advantages to doing things this way is you can drag and drop a texture. If you happen to have a texture on hand. And tomorrow we'll be going over making our own brushes, so we can make a texture brush tomorrow and put that on here and put it under the mask and then move it wherever we need to. So you can unlock this. Do I have a... I don't even know if I have any kind of random texture. Oh, I've got leaves. Okay. Give me 1 second to... I'm not going to go too into detail on what I'm doing because I'm going to go into that on next Friday. Let's say I wanted his shirt to have leaves. You can select your texture and you can move it to wherever you needed to move. If your mask is unlocked, till you find a good spot for it. Uh, and say you had your mask good for your skin, if you wanted. If you hold Command or Control on Windows, you can select just your mask by clicking on it. I'm going to go back to my soft brush. I'll go to my standard brush. And I'm going to hide that little bit of close layer. I can hide a little bit more on that hair layer. Keeping in mind you'll get kind of the same little weird effect that sometimes happens with the paint spill, where it doesn't quite line up to each other. But I can select my hair and I can start going in, masking out more. Or I can select the lasso tool and just keep adding more mask. And we'll say, let's make this his vest instead. So I'm just going to kind of cheat to make it fill the entire area. Just leave me alone with my maple leaf vest. I'm Canadian. I'm allowed to do maple leaf vests. No, I'm kidding. Um, but say, hey, I might want to use this mask layer later. I can click and drag it onto a new layer and start making a new mask on this that's a little bit more exact. And I did the wrong mask, so that's Command I to quickly jump between. You'd expect nothing less from me. I mean, okay, at least we're on that page. I'm gonna delete some of this skin mask down there, and some of this one. And then say, oh no, I lost my fade there. You can also add masks to groups. So if I select everything, sorry, I did that a little bit fast. Clicked on the bottom one, held Shift, and clicked on the top one, and then Command or Control G to turn things into a group. I can now put a mask on a group. Oh, I had everything selected, did I? Is that what happened? Yeah. And now if I just add this fade, it'll fade everything in the group. So I can even throw the sketch in there. And this was my speech. I'm always going to spell that word wrong. Speech bubble back. And if you want, you can throw your text into a group. You can mask that too. If you find it goes too close to the edge, you want to add some cool effects. And that was about all I had planned for today. I think I'm going to add filters to next class. Next class might be a little bit long. We'll go into how to make your own brush presets, what all of these little doohickeys in the brush settings do, especially in relation to your tablet. Because we can keep filling this in. Let's put this one under the vest layer. We'll name this vest. Not best, vest. I'm going to fill this layer with, I don't know, some kind of linen shirt color. Select my mask. I'm actually going to lock that back to layer. Fill you with a black. Delete to, so you go back to transparent. And a lot of the time masks are considered, you can do vector masks, turn them into a vector. I'm not seeing it on here right now. Where is it? I'm also going a lot from my knowledge of Adobe CS5, and they have changed a lot. They moved a lot of stuff around on me. Oh, right. Uh, there was one other vector tool that I want to go over. Almost forgot. See, this is what happens when I don't plan things very well. And character. And the one thing I wanted to go over was vector symmetry tools, because that's what they are. They are vector tools. I threw myself off because I did perspective a little bit earlier than I was planning to. So Photoshop and Clip Paint Studio, not sure about Procreate. I haven't looked too closely into that one. They have a symmetry tool that is a path, but you can also, if you hit Shift U until you get to Align tool, you can also make your own. Right click on it, make symmetry path. I don't know why you're not doing it, but okay. It says it doesn't work, but is it going to work? Because it might just work. Okay, it says it doesn't work, but it totally does work. So symmetry lets you mimic things from one side to the other. Going to delete that one. You can do, we'll do something funky. We'll do the Mandela one. So Mandela lets you pick 5, 6. We'll do 6. Put it wherever you want. And I need a layer to draw on. Thank you. So you can start making, give me something that'll show up. You can start making Mandela layer. This works great for magical effects. It's one of the things I have used it a lot for. But you can also use it for doing floral patterns on a shirt. And then say I want to take it under here. I'm going to hide symmetry. If I select my shirt mask, I can mask it to the design I made, and then it doesn't erase it. So if I unlock it from the layer by clicking that little lock, I can put it wherever I'd like. I could say, hey, let's do maybe this is a design on the cravat. And then if later on you go, oh, hey, that's not centered, it's not deleted, you can move it wherever you'd like, or if you'd like to go back and edit it after the fact. I don't have Clip Paint open, so I'm not going to open it right now, but Clip Paint also uses paths to make their perspective tool, which is super, super handy, so everything you draw will always be on a certain angle within that perspective tool. Um, Actually, yeah, what time is it? 20:47? I got time. Clip Studio Paint. Watch, it's going to take forever to open because clip paint. And my Mac is like, oh no, you want me to open what now? Hmm. And you'll, before I completely forget, because the ADHD is apparently very strong today, on my website, Zaven-art.ca, um, yes, that's how clip paint do. Totally is how clip paint do. Um, you'll see I got the first video already up there. Um, I've been struggling with this thing nonstop for 3 weeks now, and I finally have found a method to get it up there. It's not my preferred way of doing it, but it'll it'll have to do. Um, and let me make my background gray because yeah, white. I keep forgetting clip paint does things a little bit differently. Um, so in clip paint, it's under your ruler, and you'll see there's a symmetrical ruler, there's a guide, ruler pen, figure ruler. Perspective ruler is generally what I use. So you make your horizon line, and then you start making your white. No, stop. There we go. Oh, why is it doing the funky business today? Okay, there we go. I don't know why it's doing the funky business today. Normally it's not this bad. It's because I've got so much going on. Oh, okay. I see what I've got. Okay. I don't want to add vanishing. Yes, I do. Create at editing layer. Yeah. Add guide. Okay, so once I create my first point, now every point I click adds to that. I can add another vanishing point, but I don't, that's not what I'm going for right now. So now when I select my pen tool, give me something that's not quite that obscenely large, um, it will always follow this angle, except once I get to that side. And you'll see it automatically locks to straight up and down. And it's going to automatically do a straight horizontal line based on this, and the straight up and down based on this. I can start getting your shapes in. Ooh, that one went a little bit wild on me. And then you can see sometimes it chooses what to snap to. So if you command click on or control click on your line, and you find the little diamond that corresponds to that line, if you click on it and it turns green, now it's not going to snap to that. So now it's just going to snap to the horizontal and the vertical line, but it won't snap to that angle. So I can go through and I can click on all of them, maybe? Okay, so it turned that one dark blue, turned that one. So now I'm free to do my angled lines if I need them. I can click that back on, except that's the wrong. Click that one and that one back on, so I can get my roof. And then with Clip Paint does it a little bit differently than Photoshop. It assigns that guide to that layer. So if I make a new layer, you'll see my guide disappears. I'm no longer locked to stuff. But if I want to, I can click and drag that ruler to the new layer, and then it's on my layer 2. So if I want to do light posts, that should be a little bit closer. Light posts down a street, maybe. As you can see, sometimes it's hard to get the angle that you need. Go. Um, and I'm just going to bring this up because I didn't do it before. Clip Paint also has a lasso fill tool. So whatever you select, it automatically fills with that. You don't have to jump to your paint bucket tool. And you can jump between X is your jump between colors. C is jump between a color or your transparent. So if you want to delete stuff really quickly, you can do that. You just mass select stuff. So there's definitely advantages to both programs. Now, if I save this as a PSD and took it over to Photoshop, it is going to delete these perspective grids because Photoshop doesn't understand how to read it. Any kind of vector gets removed or rasterized anytime you port it from one program to another. So that includes your text will all get rasterized. Some of your masks, if you have, if it's a vector mask, will be deleted or rasterized. Um, let's see. Yeah, text is the big one on that one. Then this is the balloon tool. Oh, that's not going to work while I still have that selected. So you can freehand draw your own balloon tool. It doesn't work when I have that path open. Or it's got tail, a thought balloon tail. So your dots, and it'll ask you how do you want to bend it, what the width of it is. But Clip Paint stores its vectors as something that's a little bit different. Usually it shows a box around it. So yeah, definitely advantages and disadvantages to both programs. I much prefer this one for painting and for more textured brushes, but I know Lots of other artists prefer clip paint. Huzzah, and I managed to keep that on time. Do we got any questions to go around? Let me select my. There we go. No questions. Alrighty. Yeah, so next Friday is going to be a little bit heavy because I was considering doing filters in this one, but I'm going to save that for the next class. And yeah, we'll be making our own custom Photoshop brushes, and I don't just mean brush settings. I mean we're going to make something like this maple leaf here. If anybody's got any ideas on what kind of brush you want to make, feel free to shoot me a message. My email is available on my website, or some people know how to get a hold of me various other ways. Feel free to do that, and I might take those suggestions and we might turn that into a brush. And we'll go over the differences between the wet media brush and the regular brushes. And then I think that actually covers us pretty much in all the tools, with the exception of dodge and burn. We'll go over that. And I will see you guys next Friday. Have a good night.